Diane asked me just now as well, because in our room the Wi-Fi is connected there because we're on fiber. So we've got cables running, and um, she's got her little office there in the room as well, and she wanted to plug it in to watch, and we just couldn't get the thing going, and I don't know why. So after tomorrow, I'll have to go have a look what the story is. But
And
anyway,
just
Sandy, can I start?
oh,
Just want to hear if I must start or not.
Not yet.
Not yet.
yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
and everybody, it's those labor-saving devices.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Labor saving devices. That's a misnomer.
Uh-huh.
Course, in emergency room, we're gonna go paperless. Well, after we went paperless, we used 10 times the amount of paper.
Isn't that the worst, eh?
Yeah,
Can you
that's
believe
the
that?
truth.
Yeah. They talk about money making things, paper pulp and paper. We've got
Okay,
Mondi
go
and
ahead.
Sappy in South Africa.
We're
Yes,
ready.
really? Okay. Okay, so thank you and good evening, everybody, or good morning, everybody. Happy Sabbath to you all. Once again, Sandy, thank you for giving me an opportunity to just bring a message, and it's just a shortish message this evening, and it's more of something that happened during the last week or so, something interesting. And I thought maybe it's time we just relook at it, and have some comments around it, because I want to make this a bit interactive. So, guys, just don't everybody put off their video. So I'm going to ask some questions. Just be with me. Like I said, it's not going to be very long this evening. But first of all, let's just close our eyes and have a prayer. Our loving Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to come on this Sabbath morning, and Lord, to praise you for all the wonderful blessings you have bestowed on us this week. Lord, sometimes I think, my faith is so small, and then you just create this miracle out of nothing. Lord, I want to really humble myself this morning and ask, Lord, that you lead me. But praise you, Lord, for every single thing you've done for everybody on this call today. This is going to be a great Sabbath as we prepare for the Passover next week and for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And Lord, let us put the sin out of our lives. Let us remember what it is in the cycle of the year that we have to do to prepare ourselves for your soon coming. I ask that you lead me this evening, Lord, that this be done in humbleness, but also, Lord, to address a certain issue that really is on the hearts of a lot of people. I want to ask you to lead us. I thank you, all of us, and we'll do all of this in your Son's mighty name. Amen. As you can see there, that picture is actually what I imagine Moses was looking at Mount Sinai. Although it's a modern picture, it's a guy in modern dress. Just imagine him standing and looking at this mountain, having arrived there. And this is the Lord's mountain that he's about to go up and meet. Just imagine that. Imagine and think, if you read the Bible in Exodus and Leviticus, think about what it took to get there. Think about the expectation that people had when they arrived there. Think about the things that happened there and what we still today remember that happens there. This is a pivotal point in a Christian's life, is when we look at those two chapters from Genesis, where the creation starts, through the history that goes right up until the Exodus of the Israelites out of Egypt. So you probably would guess what that will refer to, and in a moment I'll tell you the story. But this is something that has been bouncing around since I have been what is euphemistically known as a feast keeper. And it started a number of years ago, just after I came back from Bible explorations, and I went through the whole thing with the church and so on, and then wasn't disfellowshipped. And we we were seen past ourselves and Elder Solomon Kunu. We made an appointment, and there was people actually asking to come and see us. And one of them was Dr. Richard Elofa, which I've spoken about many times, from the Jewish Adventist Ministries, and they were trying to set up a Jewish Adventist church in South Africa. And I'll never forget, I organized a boardroom in one of the leading hotels in Johannesburg. A number of people, Dasham Peter, some other folks as well that came to that meeting, because we were all fairly new in our understanding of what it is that the feasts were about. And we were, of course, all excited. There was so much new things. Obviously, there was a lot of resistance from the church. We were being looked at differently. We suddenly become the outcasts in the church. But here was somebody from the General Conference of Seventh Day Adventists who had a business card that stated that he was one of the big chiefs at the GC, coming to talk to us, small little people here in South Africa who had no links to nobody, who was on the wrong side of the church at that stage, and wondering what this man was going to tell us about the feast. Because we being so naive and being so new and still learning a lot, and having the background from reading the books at Bible Exploration, having been there, okay, we sort of had a picture of what this was. And so this gentleman came, he sat down. I remember Philip still had printed so many books, different books there and things. And within seconds, I think Dasha still asked him a question, so, something along the lines of, do you guys keep the feasts? The man's face changed instantly. And he said, well, we don't keep the feasts, we mark them. And we sort of looked at him and said, what does that mean? Okay, maybe it's because we're South African and you French. Maybe it means something different. In Afrikaans we've got one word. Ons hou die feeste. We keep the feast. In Afrikaans we say ons hou die feeste. All right. To us it means that it's like keeping the Sabbath. Ons hou die Sabbat. It's the same word. So why would we use a different word in English to describe something in our understanding that it's a holy day that's kept in the way that Seventh-day Adventists keep normal liturgy, normal services? Why would it be somehow different? Why would you use a different word? So obviously this was the start of a lot of assumptions, false narratives, and strawmen that we encountered on our journey to where we are today. And so this week, no less, March the 29th, on one of my Facebook friends, which is the gentleman on the third there from left, which is Mr. Alan Reinach, who is an attorney. Okay. You can see there he's the public affairs and the relationship or relation something for Pacific Union, okay, conference. He also deals or represents people who get fired for keeping the Sabbath. He represents people or has represented people in those cases, been very successful in them. So he's a very well-known, well-respected person, okay, also of Jewish origin. Yes, one of the first people I spoke to about this, because once again, when we started interacting with the Jewish Adventist Ministries, we had no idea who we were dealing with. So we just basically blurted out what we thought things were. And so over the years, obviously, these folks started taking a view on us. And I've done 2 sermons that you've seen in the past, which I've described what has happened there, for instance, around the Jewish ministries, that they're now openly talking about us in very derogatory terms, which is on video. So it's not things that I say, and I'll show that to you in a moment in transcripts as well, what they're saying, okay, which I honestly feel is really not Christian. Okay, but we have to understand what is happening here, and I try to understand what it is that that these people are actually trying to get to. And as I was doing this study this week, the conclusion was not a good one. So let's look at that pamphlet they've got there. It says Jewish Ministries Retreat. So a camp meeting has now become a retreat. Okay. A Passover experience. It says experience the beauty of the Passover, learn about Jewish ministry in the Adventist Church, meet the leaders of this incredible ministry, and hear how they are building bridges with the Jewish community in the Pacific Union and the world. We invite lay leaders to especially pastors to fellowship with us and learn about this unique ministry. Topics include on how to plant the Jewish ministry, how to host a Passover Seder, and a Kabbalah Sabbath. Okay. Hear fascinating presentations about the gospel and the Torah and learn about educational opportunities and certification programs for your church. So there's a couple of people there, Dr. Ronaldo Sequeira, okay, who's the new director of Jewish Ministries at the GC. He took over from Dr. Richard E. Lofer, the gentleman I got to know very well. There's, of course, Dr. Alexander Bolotnikov, okay, who's director of the Hebrew Bible Institute at the North American Division. Okay, he's the host. Then, of course, Alan Reinach is public affairs and relations for Pacific Union, and Dr. or Pastor Anatoly Gordala, okay, pastor at Southern California Conference, and they are each one doing probably a series or a couple of sermons, okay, and please note the date as well, from April the 15th to the 17th, because one of the things that came up also was that they don't keep the feasts, they mark them. But it's not necessary to really keep them, and they don't really keep them on the same dates. But obviously April 15 to 17 is Passover and the first day of Feast of Unleavened Bread. So I looked at this, and he wrote there, it's been many, many years since we've had an event like this in Pacific Union, a gathering to explore the Jewish roots of our Adventist faith. For Jews, Passover is as popular as Christmas is for Christians. Okay. Passover is a fantastic time for a spiritual retreat. I'm privileged to be counted among the speakers at this event. My topic will be Passover, antidote to the mark of the beast. And he asked to please then obviously pass it on. And you can see quite a few people loved it. One of the people who came on and gave it a big thumbs up was Ron de Pree's wife, Linda de Pree. And she was speaking to another lady there, which I won't mention now, but very well-known Jewish lady on there as well. They were having a conversation. So yeah, it seemed everybody was happy with going to a feast, to Passover. But of course, me being me, I then promptly just thought, well, let me just place something there and see what happens. So I placed the letter or email that Ron de Pree wrote to the Howick Church in 2014 when the Howick Church asked him, so do we keep the feast or not? All right. And he wrote this. And by the way, it's still on their Facebook page. That's where I got it from. Took a screenshot. And he wrote, over time, I was able to do some biblical research into a very significant argument put forward by those who promote or observe these festivals. Please note, promote or observe. Not keep, promote or observe. So if we're going to play a word game, let's play it this way. All the feasts have all been fulfilled in and by Jesus Christ, and to continue to keep these festivals is actually an insult to Jehovah. And then he misquotes Review and Herald, June 14, 1898. We all know that quote, okay? The standard SDA book, what Seventh Day Adventists believe, repeatedly confirms that at the death of Christ, the jurisdiction of ceremonial law came to an end. The atoning sacrifice proved forgiveness for all. The act wiped out the handwriting of requirements that was against us, which is contrary to us. It was taken out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. Colossians 2:14, his favorite book, which he also miswrote. No more worries about ceremonial laws, their complex requirements regarding food and drink offerings. And then he goes and offerings he puts in celebration of various festivals, Passover, Pentecost, new moons, ceremonial Sabbaths, etc., etc. Then he writes again in 3, he says, in short, to observe, not keep, observe these feasts is actually a denial of Jesus' messiahship, as one biblical scholar rightly noted, thus it is a new form of being antichrist. In other words, in place or against Jesus Christ. Nowhere does he say keep the feast. He just basically throws a general blanket and says anybody who observes or promotes these feasts are antichrist. What's this? Are they promoting Passover? I would say they would. So, having said that, of course, Alan wasn't too happy with me. He then wrote, behind of it, how little understanding you have. No one keeps the feast. But I didn't say anywhere that you keep the feast. I just put that. And of course, he knows that I'm a feast keeper. Okay. So he went immediately for the jugular. He immediately went for the point that they use as a lance against you to say, well, you keep the feast, so you want to bring all of these things back into the church. So there's no longer an illegal obligation. Each feast has a valuable lesson to teach about our beloved Messiah Jesus. Now this just bowled me. Adventists probably built theologically on the sanctuary, but we don't really understand it very well. So he's saying our sanctuary theology is not understood by Seventh-day Adventists. That's effectively what he says there. Now, guys, I don't know about you, but I sort of take slight umbrance to that. Okay, because I got drilled in the theology. I've watched so many videos. I've seen so many people preach on the sanctuary doctrine. I know it fairly well. I've got so many books I can go look up anything on it. It's one of the doctrines I'm very well versed and based in, and I'm glad that the Lord has led us to get to that. But obviously he makes a lot of assumptions here that are incorrect. So to get back to what he says, and this I'll show you in terms of going forward just a bit. And this is all on video. This is all in writing. This is not stuff I made up, and I quote them. So we, those who are feast keepers, keep the feast according to Leviticus and Old Testament obligations. That's the first thing against us. Then we are said that we are legalists, and we promote that the feasts are salvific. Now, Elder John, I'm going to show you that slide that Elder John did on that. What I do when people say that, I just post that sign. Because you know what? You create the wrong impression of what it is and who it is we are. And you are actually breaking one of the commandments, the 9th commandment. So then it's said that we have very little understanding of the concept of feast keeping, both in the Bible and as it pertains to the church today. And only Jews understand the feast. By keeping the feast, we are slapping Jesus in the face as Christians. But if you're a Jew, it's fine, you can keep it. And then we are a thorn in the Jewish Seventh-day Adventist Ministries side because of our feast keeping. Well, we were used to friends and I actually got trained in the ministry. I didn't know when we went from being friends to being enemies. Nobody let me know. Okay. But of course, there are reasons for it, which I'm not going to repeat here because I'm not quite sure of my facts. But there was some things that indicated why that happened. And then, of course, the biggest thing is that we are anti-Semitic. Now, I want to ask all of you this evening, by public vote, is any of that true? Keith, is that true? You on mute, Keith. Mute. Keith, you mute. Keith, you're on mute. Anybody else?
I'm muted, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If they say that they're antichrist, that means also that Jesus, Paul, and all the disciples was antichrist.
Yeah. But is it what we believe? Do we believe that the feasts are salvific? Do we believe that? Please say no.
No, no,
No.
Yeah, no, we don't believe that. Just as we don't believe
no.
the Sabbath or anything else is, because I'm going to show you what Elder John wrote about that in a moment. Okay, we don't believe these things, but it's said of us that we do. And my sermon this evening is really to try and formalize and correct that mistake. To say to people, listen, we do not promote that feast of silver week just because of the mere fact that we have a cycle that we do every year, that we go through Passover, we do atonement, we do tabernacles. It is part of our worship. Okay? The Sabbath is our weekly, the feasts are yearly. We are not doing damage to anybody. Okay? We are not promoting anything weird or anything like that. And so tonight I want to I say thank you to you guys for coming and saying yes, or saying no, this is not correct.
I just want to comment on the anti-Semitic thing. I'm mystified by that,
Well, they do
by
say,
that charge.
yeah, no, it's on that video. I showed that video 2 sermons or 3 sermons ago. I showed the video where in a question and answer session, he calls Bible explorations by name anti-Semitic.
Well, see, this is some of the problems when Jesus walked this earth.
Exactly.
Jewish people then thought that they was better than everybody
Yeah.
else. They
And this is
would
what happens
not
here.
humble themselves.
Well, go look at Alan Reinach's comment right at the beginning on Facebook. Then you'll see. So to keep or not to keep, that's the question. All right. So I went a bit further and I looked at the word. So I remember us then to continue on the story with Dr. Elofer coming to visit us here in South Africa and talking about this whole keep thing. So we were, of course, all of us ran to the nearest strong concordance because we now thought keep had some mystical meaning in the Bible. Now you can think at Adventist, we paging through the Strong's concordance trying to find out what the heck is this guy meaning. Have we missed something? But then I went and looked at 2 dictionaries, the Cambridge and the Oxford Dictionary. And by the way, you must remember they are 2 competing universities in the UK. So Cambridge and Oxford. So in the Cambridge Dictionary, to keep or to keep, that's the question. So I always ask, what does the word keep mean to you? The word has both meanings as a verb and as well as a noun. In the Cambridge Dictionary, it has that description that speaks of my understanding of keep in the context of the Holy Convocations as a so-called feast keeper. So what does Cambridge Dictionary says? It says to keep an appointment to go to a meeting or an event that has been arranged. That's what the feasts are, aren't they? So when I talk of keep, that's what it means to me. Because that appointment or event has basically been arranged by our Father and by the Lord Jesus Christ, hasn't it? That's how I see it. The Bible says so. But it can also mean, keep can also mean cause to continue in a specified condition, position, or course, etc. And this is what these people obviously believe. So they believe that we are still going to continue in the way as the Israelites did in Leviticus, and they promote that side of keep. So in the Oxford Dictionary, that's what it means in the Oxford Dictionary. This meaning is that it is put forward by those who have some unknown agenda against us on why folks like we and I keep the feast. But folks, we read all of this, we see this on videos, and we listen to it. But nobody's actually asked any feast keeper that I know of what they actually believe. Nobody sat down with any of us here and said, listen, guys, okay, I want to know what you guys see as this. Tell us what it is that you really believe. People just fly off the handle. They disfellowship people. They cast you out because you have created the absolute mortal sin by just even associating with the Passover, for instance. Okay. So, and by the way, this is now both by Christian and once again, remember there's two things in the church now. There are Christian as well as Jewish Seventh-day Adventists because they've put that into the church. The Jewish Adventists have their own churches that are separate from normal Seventh-day Adventist churches, and they on that video they say yes, it's so. That's why the reason we have it is that a Jew cannot be part of a normal Seventh-day Adventist church because they leave quickly, because our people are sort of not up to standard when it comes to dealing with Jewish people. So who's the real anti-Semitics? Is it us? Don't think so. All right. So Where was I? Okay. So, in fact, in our country in South Africa, one of the things that happened a while ago was that if you wanted to transfer between churches, for instance, here in South Africa, they put in an additional condition. You had to make a declaration that you don't keep the feast and that you believe in the Trinity. They put those two extra things in. If you don't answer those questions, you can't do a transfer between churches. So you can't transfer your membership. Okay. So of course, this whole false narrative around the word keep is of course never questioned. Why would any faithful Seventh-day Adventist sits on the Sabbath, goes for lunch, rest of the other 6 days they work, forget about the Lord? Why would they ever question it? Because of course the pastors from Andrews University has a degree in New Testament theology, um, is Jewish. Why would they ever lie to you? Why you know they know so much more. Some of these guys like in this ministry is Jewish. Obviously they know a lot more about Jewish culture, everything Jewish. So I don't live a Jewish culture, so I wouldn't know. I've studied it, uh, but I would actually then listen to somebody, obviously, who comes from that culture. So, of course, there's no problem with Seventh-day Adventists keeping the Sabbath, like I said. So, when you read through most official sites like the Seventh-day Adventist sites, you will read something like when Jesus lived here on earth, he kept the seventh-day Sabbath. However, just a few hundred years after his death and resurrection, early Christians began keeping Sunday as their day of worship, as Daniel foretold. Or keeping the Sabbath is the fourth commandment found in God's eternal moral law. So, when it comes to the Sabbath, we can keep it. But if keep means that you are going to continue in a certain way doing the same thing as what you did in Leviticus, it means that you should actually be sacrificing on the Sabbath as well, if keep means that. Do you agree? It makes perfect sense. It's logic. Okay? But, of course, then if you go on further careful inspection and observation, and this is now where the truth comes out, one realizes that what is meant by those people to keep the feast. The indictment against feast keepers is that they want to reintroduce the feast of the Old Testament of Leviticus. And this is as per Dr. Bolotnikov on YouTube and Ralph, is it Ralph Reiner, Ralph Reiner, whatever, we'll see in a moment. And that means that these heretics, which is us, want to bring in all the traditions and offerings that were part of the sacrificial service into Seventh-day Adventist Church. One of the things that I was charged on during my disfellowship was that I wanted to bring Jewish traditions into the church. I can show you that. It's in writing. Okay? So that was the charge. It wasn't a feast. It was the Jewish traditions. And really, they were so against that. Anything Jewish. So that meant that people that would wear a talit or would come from somewhere else outside that would just half have something Jewish like a talit or a kippah or something on it. And I saw that happen twice. They would literally be told to either take it off when they got to the front door of the church or be turned away. Literally. So, and of course that's the scurrilous message. That was a nice word I found, that the church is being fed. In fact, during my failed disfellowship hearing in 2014, the conference president actually asked if I slaughtered sheep in my backyard for my feast. And that's on video, that's on audio. I've got the whole audio, and it's written in a book as well that an elder read or wrote on that whole thing. So one of the elders in my church, and he refers to there's a whole chapter paragraph on this whole thing about me slaughtering sheep in my backyard. In fact, that was the original charge against me, is that I slaughtered for my feast. That was because a church member was told to lay that charge against me. So what did Elder John say in his questions and answers? And I still use that PowerPoint. He did such a good job. I miss him. So why was Paul keeping the feast if he was so opposed to Christians still keeping the ceremonial law? That was a very good question. The only answer I know, and that's Elder John, is that the feast must not be part of the ceremonial law. It's very clear. In Acts of the Apostles 3:92, the ceremonial law was fulfilled. But in Acts of the Apostles 3:94 and 6, tell us that they are actually part of the laws which were still honored by Paul, plus the fact that they were called statutes and judgments, and that the spirit of prophecy tells us clearly that we are still required to obey these statutes and judgments. And that explains why Paul made a regular habit of keeping them, even with the Gentiles. So, like these Jewish Adventists, maybe Paul was trying to witness to the Jews. Okay, so these people are also trying to witness to the Jews, and I can understand that. I can understand the difficulty to try and witness to a Jewish person, because I've encountered them on Facebook. They are not easy people to deal with. They do not really like Christians that much. Okay, and I can understand why. There's a whole history to it. So yes, he certainly was trying to witness to the Jews at every opportunity. He was also trying to witness to the Jews when he went to the synagogue every Sabbath. But he was also doing it because God had commanded the Sabbath to be kept. Not celebrated, not mocked, kept. Paul didn't need the Sabbath commandment repeated in the New Testament. God had commanded it once in the Old Testament, and therefore Paul obeyed it. This command to keep the Sabbath still needs to be obeyed today as well. God also commanded the yearly feasts, and Paul kept these throughout his life as well. He also tried to use every opportunity to speak to Jesus to his countrymen and to those who were not his countrymen, the Gentiles. So here's the big question, and I put a big thing underneath the official position of Bible Explorations Ministry. I hope I'm correct in this. This comes off that slide. It says, are feasts salvational? And it says the only way to be saved, and please, if you're listening or watching this and you believe that we believe that the feasts are salvational, please take note tonight or today. We do not believe that. Okay? Not in the sense that you mean. The only way to be saved is through faith in Jesus Christ. Keeping the feast will not help you earn your way to heaven. There is nothing you can do to earn your way to heaven. All you can do is to let Jesus come into your life and do his work in you. You are to cooperate with all his Spirit shows you is right. Do the right thing. So the only way to be saved is by faith in Jesus Christ. I've never doubted that. I've never not believed that. Why would I? I don't believe the Sabbath is going to save me. I don't believe my diet is going to save me. That is the only thing that saves me. Okay? When you read the famous faith chapter, Hebrews 11, all the people who had faith did something. They obeyed God. So obedience is necessary. And people who say we are legalistic is actually making void the whole issue around obedience. So we can just do and change things as we see fit. We can change holy days into holidays, which I'm going to show you in a minute. We can say, well, it's not really necessary for us, but there's another section of the population that can actually keep these things. But for us as Christians, no, it's not necessary. Okay? That's actually not correct in terms of the Bible. When someone asks the question, do I have to do it? Because remember, most of these things start, or the titles, or the blurb lines, or whatever you want to call it, says, do we have to keep the feast? And Elder John says, do I have to do it? It usually means, can I get by with not obeying it and still get to heaven? How much can I disagree with Christ's platform and still be saved? That is the official position of Bible Explorations. Nowhere here does it say it's salvational. So to get back and last on the keep or not keep, what I then said to Alan Reinach, I said, I strongly believe in freedom of conscience, which, by the way, he promotes as well, okay? And when it comes to religion, something that a Seventh Day Adventist is supported by Mrs. White's writings. We will also have Passover this year, and because it is a worldwide service attended by mostly excommunicated SDAs, for the mere fact that we wish to celebrate, mark, keep, observe the feasts. We will have communion, beautiful sermons on the topics pertaining to SDA belief. We will have good food and share fellowship, and we will pray that the Lord lifts the scales from your eyes, because one day we will all have to keep the Sabbath and the feasts in heaven. So Mark 7, 1-13 now really gets to the nitty-gritty of what is happening here. And the same thing happened during Jesus' time. And see it in the sense that these people are the Pharisees. Okay? Mark 1 says, then the Pharisees and some of the scribes from Jerusalem came together to him. And when they saw some of his disciples eating with defiled hands, that is, unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews, holding fast to the tradition of elders, do not eat unless they wash their hands thoroughly. Even when coming from the market, they do not eat unless they wash themselves. And there are many other things that they have received to observe, and such as the washing of cups, pots, and brass utensils, and tables. For this reason, the Pharisees and scribes questioned him, saying, Why don't your disciples walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? And he answered and said to them, Well did Isaiah prophesy concerning you hypocrites, as it's written, This people honors me with their lips, but with their hearts are far away from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrine the commandments of men. For leaving the commandment of God, you hold fast to the tradition of men, such as the washing of pots and cups. But you practice many things, other things like this. And then he said to them, Full well you reject the commandment of God, so that you may observe your own tradition. There's so much tradition in this chapter. For Moses said, Honor your father and mother. The one who speaks evil of father and mother, let him be put to death. But you say, If a man say to his father or mother, Whatever benefit you might receive from me is korban, that is set aside a gift to God. He is not obliged to help his parents. And you excuse him from doing anything for his father or mother, nullifying the authority of the word of God by your tradition which you have passed down, and you practice many such traditions as this. So what does these famous people say from the Jewish Adventists? Well, first of all, let me assure you the video, they talk about tradition. They actually encourage that the Jews can come into the church and keep their traditions. What did the Bible just say about tradition? And what tradition are they bringing into the church? So Ralph Ringer, the former director of Jewish Ministries and Southern Union Conference, he says on this video, which is the link here below, we don't really, and by the way, it's word for word what he's saying. I haven't even touched it. He says we don't really highlight feast days because according to Sasha Bolotnikov, in my interaction with the Jews as well, is that it's called the holidays today. So now it's not holy days, it's now holidays. So it makes it something very different to a holy day. That's what he's saying. That's why the Jewish people today use, and we cannot try and teach them and try and use biblical language that they don't use anymore. In other words, he's now referring to Leviticus. Okay? We can't use that Bible language anymore. That's almost like speaking in a different language. So use the words that they understand and not know. We're not okay, but not know. We're not suggesting that all of our churches keep Passover on a regular basis. If they want to celebrate, that's fine. So you don't have to keep it, but if you want to keep it, it's fine. You don't have to disfellowship people. Okay? Then he says we call these days holidays. Okay, we're going to look at holidays in a moment. Okay. Then he also talks about evangelism. Okay, remember I mentioned Paul went around, and one of the things that was always said, Paul used the feast for evangelism. Well, they say the same. The official statement in the contextualized evangelism, the feast days of the holidays are the most effective ways of reaching that person that's already favorable to get them across, okay, into the church. Now, please, once again, I say this is transcript of YouTube. Okay. So one of the things he says there, it's a good way to relate to Jewish people, especially the more secular ones in the Jews. So we have some of those who kind of like some Christians, like Christmas and Easter, when they go to church only once a year, and some Jews do the same on those special days when they go for Passover or whatever. They go to the synagogue once a year. So it's okay to do these holidays, and they actually say that, Bolotnikov says that, it's okay to do these holidays to get the Jews into church. And of course, then they talk about us, and you've seen this one, I've shown you this one. Dr. Bolotnikov then talks about the feast keepers, he talks about Bible explorations directly. And he says, and very often these people, the feast keepers, don't get it. We're not trying to keep. We're not trying to keep, we're not keeping feasts, we're doing the holidays. Notice the language very carefully. We are not keeping the feast, we are doing the holidays. We are not interested in trying to go back to the book of Leviticus. We are not interested in trying to recreate Levitical rituals. We are not interested in trying to fulfill the Levitical law as an additional set of commandments in addition to the Sabbath. So we keep the holidays. Now, folks, do we want to recreate the Levitical rituals? Anybody here want to recreate it? Please tell me if you want to. Nobody? So we all agree we don't want to recreate the Levitical rituals either. So what they're doing here is they're creating a false narrative to try and deflect things and things off them, because they do get taken on, as in that video, by normal Seventh-day Adventists who are asking the same questions, but you are disfellowshipping people. You've taught us that the feasts are no longer relevant. Why do you even refer to a Passover that's held on the same dates as the normal Passover that the Jews keep? Why do you do that? And then they say, well, we're not like the feast keepers. We just do it for ministerial or for evangelical purposes to get our friends, the Jews, into church. But those people that out there, those feast keepers, watch out for them, eh? They want to bring in the old laws of the Leviticus. They want to slaughter sheep for their feasts. They want to do all this weird and wonderful thing, dress up. They want to wear a talit. They want to blow a horn. Oh, sorry, yeah, but you know what? We at the Jewish Adventist Ministries, we do that every week at Sabbath as well. So what they do is they actually bear false witness against us. They're breaking the 9th commandment. I'm not going to go too much in what Ellen White says, just to please note, everything that Christians do should be transparent as sunlight. Truth is of God. Deception in every one of its myriad forms is of Satan. We cannot speak the truth unless our minds are continually guided by Him who is the truth. False speaking in any manner, any attempt to purpose to deceive our neighbor is there included. In intention to deceive constitutes falsehood. And what I believe is happening here, and I'll say it, okay, it might not be true, people might not believe it, but I believe there's a false intent created here to get the Jewish people into the church. And so let's ask the question, do we keep the days differently from these people who accuse us? Well, they're going to have a retreat. We normally have a retreat or a camp meeting pre-COVID, maybe soon again when Sandy gets blessed. And should we do a camp meeting again, we'll come do one for her. Do sermons and talks of biblical and teaching. Well, they do sermons and talks of biblical topics and teachings of the feast. We do sermons and talks of biblical topics and teachings of the feast. They have fellowship and meals. We have fellowship and meals. They using and wearing traditional Jewish religious dress, for instance, kippah and talit. We allow people the freedom to wear and dress as they see fit. They have a traditional Seder service, and they call it a holiday or a Jewish tradition. We call it a holy day, and we celebrate, keep, mark it as per the Bible in the New Testament and as according to what we see in the Seventh-day Adventist teachings. Sorry. All right. So here are these people who are supposedly not Jewish and who keep the feasts. Okay. I don't know if you can see any sheep on a spit somewhere out there. I don't see anything. Okay. Most of you have been with me to that tent, that famous tent there at Terabella. We're going to miss that tent. Okay. There's, if you don't,
Hein,
yes.
really quick, one thing that you keep saying, and it really has always bothered me, all these higher up people keep accusing us of things that they've been here and they can see
Yes.
online. They know good
Yes.
and well that we don't do anything other than have a normal camp meeting. There's nothing strange here. There's no meat. There's no sacrifice. There's nothing. And I've never understood why they try to throw that in, and people that don't know are like, oh, and I'm like, we don't do that.
No,
And
you don't.
I just can't understand why they keep throwing that in there.
And Sandy, that's the point of this evening sermon, because I believe that when you get this, if anybody gets accused of this, I'm hoping that this sermon that's recorded this evening, you can send it to somebody and say, okay, there it is. Because it's the narrative, and we all know what a narrative is. We know the falsehoods of what media does. Everybody, everywhere is using that to their advantage to further their own cause. And what has happened here, Sandy, is like you say, people who've been there have seen what has happened there. Who've even a person like Dr. Ronda Priya, who's been there, he said good things about Terabella, okay, and then he promptly went and did a hatchet job on the doctrine because it didn't fit his narrative, okay. Although, and in a moment, well, on that Facebook thing, I actually pointed out the fact that Dr. Bolotnikov, Sasha Bolotnikov, twice on 3ABN proved Ronda Priya wrong on 2 Colossians 14 to 16. Not once, twice. He and in that video as well, he says there are two types of people when it comes to feast keeping. You get supposedly the ones like us who is very fanatical and whatever. He describes us as that. And then you get the other side which is totally anti, okay, and wants to string everybody from a tree. And of course that speaks to us and to Ronda Priya. So they somewhere in the middle according to them. But I don't believe that. I believe they're the ones that are way out and that they are using deceit to get people into the church. Because why would you go out there and tell people, you know what, you can come hold your traditions? Why not make you part of the normal church? If the church is that opposed to this thing of the feast and doesn't want to allow that tradition in, why is it allowed by the General Conference? It's a question we have to ask because it does affect a lot of people.
They also
Okay.
use the word Jewish
Yes. Yes.
for Jesus. They're not Jewish.
Yeah. So that, yeah, by the way, yeah, that's a whole different topic. Don't even go. But I just want to show you the difference between where holiday and holy day, how that fits, okay? Because like keep, this is now semantics again, all right? So they now say, no, it's not a holy day, it's a holiday. But the word holiday comes from the Old English word that was first recorded in 950 AD as Heilige Dag. Heilig for holy and Dag for day. The first recorded spelling of holiday was in 1416 AD, around the Middle English period, and it took a new meaning as a day when commoners were exempt from labor. Okay, sounds interesting. Wonder what other day is exempt from labor. Historically, this always referred to specific holy days in the Christian liturgical calendar, Christmas being of the highest holy days of the year. So a holiday was supposed to be a Christian holy day, okay, specifically referring to like Christmas. Do we keep Christmas as Seventh Day Adventists? Well, some do, some don't, but we don't. Okay, we prefer the holy days. So we get holidays where we go to the sea, we go visit friends, we go family. Okay, we have you've got what is it? Your 4th of July, your Independence Day, which is a holiday. Holiday being a secular day. Okay, I hope I'm right with that. Okay, and you've got those days. We've got them here in South Africa as well. You know, certain days that we have that are secular holidays. They're not holy days. So there is a difference between a holiday and a holy day for us, the meaning. So over time, the original meaning was lessened as holidays became associated with vacations and time of work. Typically, Christians would not work on these days, so rest and relaxation was a natural part of every holy day. But in Mark 13, it says, but in vain they worship me, teaching for doctrine the commandments of men. So what they've done effectively is they've changed the doctrine to suit them. So no longer does God have holy days in Leviticus. He now has holidays. And holidays are being described, there's the formal description of it, as being Christian holidays, not Jewish. So now you're telling the Jews they're coming to keep Christmas in the Adventist church effectively. But it gets better. So in the Sabbath school lessons, you can find a lot of it. There was one called Christ and Religious Tradition. I just took out this bit. It's actually a very interesting lesson to go through. I read through it as well. Some very interesting things because it really, really it sort of counterposes itself. It says one thing the one way and then it says the same thing the other way, and it sort of gets itself in a bit of a tangle with this. But I took out this one from Desire of Ages, which says the precepts of men. We all know what precepts are. The substitution of precepts of men for the commandments of God has not ceased. This is what's happening here, folks. These people have used the precepts of men to change the commandments of God, the statutes and judgments. Even among Christians are found institutions and usages that have no better foundation than the traditions of the fathers. They want to introduce Jewish traditions into, well, they have already done that by separate churches. Such institutions resting upon mere human authority have supplanted those of divine appointment. Men cling to their traditions and revere their customs and cherish hatred against those who show them their error. So we're showing their error. That's why they don't like us very much, because we are trying to do it in a biblical context, not in a Levitical way, but in a biblical context. In place of the authority of the so-called fathers of the church, God bids us to accept the word of the eternal Father, the Lord of heaven and earth. So we've got to accept that eternal word. When it says forever, it doesn't mean until Sodom and Gomorrah burns up, like Rhonda Pre explains. It's not for a short period of time. You can't suddenly just forever and now it's suddenly just for like 2 weeks type of thing. So just in short, our traditions and things on the A2Day, AdventistToday.org, we've got several traditions as well, like, we've got a week of prayer, all different things. But here's the interesting one, folks. Up here it says in some countries, putting Christmas tree is still taboo in Adventist buildings, but the resistance against Christmas trees are gradually disappearing, and even Christmas and Easter services have been introduced in some places. Adventists have come far. We don't keep the feasts, but we keep Passover. We mark Passover. We don't keep Christmas, but we stick up a tree and we keep Christmas. So worship of the true Father Yahweh is the worship of action. So here's the real theology behind it. So one of the lessons learned by keeping Yahweh's holy days and feasts is the desire to choose his ways over your own. I believe that's what's in every person's heart here this evening. We want to follow God, okay? We are not legalistic when we do this. We are merely being obedient to what we believe is in the New Testament and the way that the New Testament Christians, being Paul and the disciples, followed him. Taking up his observances and doing them is a clear indication of our heart's desire to follow him in obedience. We follow him by what we do far more than what we say. We can talk the most convincing talk, but unless our words translate into active obedience, it is all just empty rhetoric. The Apostle Paul calls words without action sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. The actual keeping of Yahweh's feasts is the test of our sincerity. Now I'm going to hear people say, "Oh, salvific again. You people are saying we don't keep the feast. We're not sincere." No. That's not what we're saying. Be obedient to God. That's all we're saying. You need to grow in the truth. That's fine. Okay? It's your choice. Nobody's saying you cannot be saved. That's between you and your Maker. But leave us alone that believe in this way, because we're doing nobody any harm. We've done the studies and we know what we believe. Unlike Alan, who right at the beginning say that I know so little, I have got 10 years of very hard graft and learning behind me on the topic. So I know a lot about what is said. So the Passover demands that we take a personal assessment of our lives prior to partaking of the emblems, okay, the traditions. Through this memorial, we accept the blood of Yeshua to cleanse our sin, but taking part in the memorial also means we root out all that offends in our lives, which is reinforced by the removal of the leaven for the feast of unleavened bread that follows. Simple, easy to understand. That's what we do. So it's a remembrance, okay? We go through the Passover service, we do communion, we do foot washing. Then the week of unleavened bread, we think about the leaven in our lives. We pray every day. We have a retreat or a camp meeting, okay? And we talk about these things. We're not slaughtering anything. In the Old Covenant, nearly sort of 2 months before the Old Covenant was ratified and before he scaled Mount Sinai to receive the codified law from Yahweh, Moses was instructed about the Passover, the first feast, and the first feast unleavened bread. So 2 months even before he got onto to Sinai, we all know that they already had Passover and unleavened bread. And Yahweh said, "And this day shall be unto you for a memorial." Wasn't given at Sinai. It was given still in Egypt. Okay, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. And you'll keep it a feast as by an ordinance forever. So not forever until the Old Testament ends or the Old Covenant ends. Forever. If God says forever, it's forever. We learn first of all that is a feast to Yahweh. Later in Leviticus, Yahweh commanded Moses, "Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be a holy convocation, even these are my feasts." He leaves no doubt that these observances belong to him, not just the Jews or any particular group of people. It didn't matter whether you were an Israelite or a stranger, you were required to observe these days set apart by Yahweh himself in Exodus 12:19. And then, of course, the 5 classes of law is spoken about. These feasts are part of the spiritual law, just like the 10 Commandments. They reveal spiritual attributes of Yahweh to help produce a spiritual change in us when we observe them in true sincerity. The change in law that many like to cite came about in the ceremonial ritual law, not in the spiritual law. The book of Hebrews speaks about the temporary nature of animal sacrifices and other rituals, which was a figure for the time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and drinks, and washing and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation. Hebrews 9:9 and 10. So ritualistic ordinances were added to the law of obligation because Israel continued transgression, and that's in Galatians 3:19. Yeshua now intercedes for us as high priest. His blood is the only effective remedy for sin. This is the change in the law that the scriptures speak of. Nothing in the Bible affects or alters our responsibility to keep the spiritual law and the feast days. And there's numerous examples in the New Testament. There's all the text. You can go have a look at them. I can send you the thing as well, but it's all there. Okay, and we keep, mark, celebrate it, if you want to use some word semantics, in terms of the New Testament, in terms of what Paul did, in terms of what Jesus did. The promise. So Yeshua himself promised to keep the Passover in future kingdom with his disciples in Matthew 26:9, Mark 14:25, and Luke 22:18 and 30. Everyone, including Yeshua, will be keeping the feast in the kingdom. Keeping the kingdom comes to earth. So why would we not be keeping them right now? 1 Corinthians 5 to end off with says the following: "Therefore purge out the old leaven, so that you may become a new lump, even as you were unleavened. For Christ our Passover was sacrificed for us. For this reason, let us mark, celebrate? No, keep the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." Passover, do this in remembrance of me. So if you are watching this video at whatever time in the future that you might want it, get the book. It's on PDF. It's called New Discoveries from Old Manuscripts. It was written by a very knowledgeable man, a man who had great respect upon the people who knew him and is still respected today. An honest man, a sincere man, a man of God, Elder John Vanderberg. And he laid the foundation for Bible Explorations as it sits today and is run by Sandy, his daughter. So Yahweh's feasts are forever and for all. Our Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to speak about these things today, Lord. I want to thank you, Lord, for leading me through this, having looked at it, having looked at all the the indictments against us. And we have to speak about this, Lord. We cannot be silent about it, because there are a great many people who will be watching, a great many people who will be looking at what we do. And we have to really be as faithful as anybody else to understand that we have to listen to your commands and be obedient to you. And Lord, that does not make us legalists. You know that. We love you more than anything else. You've guided us on our paths. You've given us great blessings that we are eternally grateful for. You've created a great fellowship within the Bible Exploration community, within my ministry, Adventist Covenant Hope Movement, and blessed so many people through the celebration of the Holy Convocations. Lord, we will continue on this path until you come, and thereafter, when we are with you in heaven, we are looking forward to sitting at that great table and having a feast with you and every other believer. Bless every single person here this evening, Lord, and a special blessing on those who will be watching. We ask this in the mighty name of Yeshua. Amen.
Thank you. That was good.
Any comments? Oh, I'm right on time. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I talk about keeping the Sabbath and observing the feast.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, we observe the feast. It's just like with Christmas and Easter. We didn't keep Christmas and Easter. We observed them. That was a long time ago.